Take a seat, because what I'm going to tell you now will probably shake you up a little and change the way you see photography. Are you sitting down? Good. Your images might be rejected because they are too sharp. No, I'm not delirious and I haven't taken any bad pills or anything like that, but I repeat it again. Your images might be rejected because they are too sharp. So how can I say something foolish like that? I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Okay, so let me explain. But first I would like to share two basic principles with you. Principle number 1. The amount of sharpening to apply on an image depends on the print size, print media, or if it's going to be used on a website and so on. Principle number 2. It is very easy to increase sharpening in an image editing software, but it's very difficult to reduce the sharpening. So what's the message here? Well, you do not know the print size or print media the end user will use when you submit your images, right? So if you apply too much sharpening for the intended purpose, it's very difficult for the buyer to use your image later. It just won't look good. But let me clarify one thing before we continue. This does not mean you can submit badly focused images from a 2 megapixel camera with camera shake or motion blur. It does not mean that. So, what does it mean then? Well, first let me give you a definition. The perceived sharpness in a digital image is a combination of three things. First we have the resolution, then we have the camera handling, and then we have something called acutance. Now, resolution is 100% related to the camera and lenses you use. And camera handling is 100% related on how well you focus the image and how steady you hold the camera. Obviously, it never hurt to have a high resolution and good camera handling, so always strive to focus well, and if you can avoid it, by all means, buy a good camera. Acutance is the edge contrast on the image, and here's where it gets really interesting. When you apply sharpening inside the camera or in your image editing software, you increase the acutance and not the resolution or the focus of the image. All you do is to increase the edge contrast, and this is where many photographers go wrong. The edge contrast you apply depends on the image size or print size, and if the image is intended for web use or print, and it even depends on what paper you use when you print the image. And as I said again, it's easy to increase the edge contrast, but it's darn difficult to reduce it again. It is also very subjective and very bewildering how and how much edge contrast to apply, especially for beginners. But the good news is that you don't have to do anything. That's right, you should do absolutely nothing. Because only the end user knows what he or she will do with the image so only the end user knows how much edge contrast to apply. So what you should do is to keep the edge contrast to a minimum, because, as I mentioned earlier, it's easy to increase the edge contrast, but it's very difficult to reduce it again. So, all you have to do is to turn sharpness to a minimum in your camera. And do not apply any extra sharpening in your image editing software. That's pretty much it. Not only do you save plenty of time and frustration, but you also greatly increase your chances of getting your image submission approved. While this is a great first step, there is obviously more to getting an image approved than just getting the sharpness right. So what you need is a system that guides you through all the steps and make sure you didn't forget important steps or activities. There are many steps between taking the image and submitting the image to the stock agencies. And all of these steps are easy to do, but it's important that none of them are forgotten or done in the wrong order. So, why don't the stock agencies educate the beginners through all the steps in the process instead of just giving them a hard time? Well, I don't know, and I'm not a mind reader either. But I do know they are giving beginners a hard time in their first submissions. I have myself managed to cut through all the smoke laid out by the stock agencies after numerous failed submissions, and I mean numerous failed submissions. And I have developed a system with a step-by-step checklist to ensure I don't make stupid and frustrating mistakes over and over again. So far I kept my system with the checklist for myself because I'm foremost a photographer and not a preacher about my fantastic system. In fact, I'd rather not talk about it at all, but I have one major problem. Because a good friend of mine leaked about it on the internet forum, and now it reached a horrible snowball effect. But there's unfortunately not much I can do about it right now. Lately I got more questions about my system that I could take, so I developed a frequently asked questions webpage to avoid getting bogged down, and so I could focus on my photography again. While it worked quite well, I realized that many of the questions were difficult to answer in plain text. So now I recorded a number of videos that explains everything in great detail. Click on the link below to continue.